The reason the Mega Man series is revered by so many gamers is not because of the tight gameplay, the great boss fights, and the challenging level designs. Sure, those elements do help to turn those early entries into legitimate classics, but the reason this franchise was able to stand out from the rest of the 8-bit pack is because every single time you beat one of Dr. Wily's evil robots, you earned one of his special abilities. That's exactly what happens in the new game Bat Boy, the sophomore effort from developer Defunct Games. And that's not the only lesson this throwback game learned from studying the classics, because this side-scrolling platformer managed to turn a simple concept into a fun and inventive action game that not only gets the fundamentals right, but actually manages to add something new to the formula. Get that helmet and jockstrap ready, because this is my review of Bat Boy. By day, Ryosuke is a regular high schooler with a love for playing baseball. However, by night, he and his athletic friends secretly do battle against crime and injustice. They don costumes and take on the bad guys using the skills they learned both on the court and the field, using everything from tennis to soccer balls to a good old-fashioned football tackle. But these skills would prove to be no match for Lord Vicious, an interdimensional magician who brainwashes the sports stars and forces them to compete in the trials of darkness. Thankfully, Bat Boy was able to use his slugger to defeat the brainwashing magic, sending him on an epic adventure to free his friends from Lord Vicious's evil clutches. This is such a fantastic setup because it allows the developers a chance to construct levels and enemies that are based on each athlete's preferred sport. Don't take that to mean that the stages are as literal as a soccer pitch or tennis court, because the elements are not always that obvious. Instead, what we get are fun hints at the sport and enemies that work the rules of the game into their attacks. Sometimes it's as obvious as a bouncing ball that literally turns into a basketball, while other times you'll get into an intense back and forth rally with a racketed foe. I could wait to see how they would twist and turn each sport into a challenging platforming stage, and I was never disappointed. A lot of what this game has going for it is the hero, Bat Boy. From the moment you see him smash the magic back in Lord Vicious's face, you know the kind of action hero this guy's gonna be. The bat isn't some boring sword, but rather it's a blunt object that sends the enemies flying backwards. And when those bad guys send projectiles flying at you, Bat Boy will hit them right back into their smug faces. It really gives you a sense of power right from the start, because you know that all you really need to defeat most attacks is a strong swing. Now, what makes this bat so great is that it has a lot more uses than just smacking enemies around. For one thing, you can charge up and throw the bat, having it spin in the air for a few seconds. While this is great as a projectile attack, Bat Boy can also jump on the spinning bat in order to reach out-of-the-way platforms, something that becomes a big part of almost every stage. We can also bounce off the enemies and other objects using the bat. It's the kind of all-in-one weapon that opens up the gameplay instead of limiting it. In that sense, it reminded me a lot of Scrooge McDuck's cane in Capcom's DuckTales games. The game just keeps finding inventive ways to use the bat. The same goes for the special abilities that you pick up along the way. Like I said at the top, each boss will relinquish a different sports-specific ability. Granted, some of these power-ups are little more than a standard dash or wall jump, only now with a sports twist. Other moves will protect our hero in a bubble for a short amount of time, or even throw a basketball layup in order to defeat hard-to-reach bad guys. What I like about these moves is that you don't have to choose between them like in the Mega Man series. Here, each move is mapped to a different combination of buttons, such as down and jump and one of the shoulder buttons. The trick is that you're limited by how many of these special moves you can perform between checkpoints, so you're gonna need to choose wisely. Thankfully, you can buy upgrades that give you both more health and special move points. Now, because the unlockable abilities and level designs are so cool, it's easy to gloss over just how much fun the boss fights are. This is yet another part of Bat Boy that feels like it comes straight out of Mega Man. These one-on-one battles do a great job of giving each of your brainwashed friends a personality, and I love how each sport plays into their attacks. Better still, almost every boss has a second form that they'll transform into halfway through the fight, allowing for even more cool sports-themed moves. I love that these bosses are challenging but fair. No matter how hard they seemed at first, they aren't that frustrating. Defeating each boss comes down to memorizing patterns and using your special moves at the right time. A staple of the 8-bit games the Bat Boy is cribbing off of. And you know what? That goes for the rest of the game too. While there are certainly challenging levels, the game is nowhere near as hard as Mega Man or Ninja Gaiden or really any of the other side-scrolling platformers that I grew up with. What I really like is how this game finds new ways of being difficult. Every level has its own unique set of obstacles and challenges, often forcing you to play the game in a lot of different ways. The game's good about showing you something that you've never seen before, all while blending it with hints of enemies and traps from 35-year-old games. This is the kind of throwback game that I love because it evokes the spirit of the classics, all while bringing something new to the table. If there's anything bad that I have to say about the game, it's that it's over far too quickly. Even at 4 or 5 hours, I was left wanting more. It honestly made me wish the Ryosuke had friends that played golf, or went canoeing, or lifted weights. Look, I don't care if it's wrestling or cup stacking. I just wanted to see more sports and more levels. I didn't want this game to end, even if the conclusion is incredibly satisfying. This is the kind of game that's tailor-made for sequels, and I would love to see Lord Vicious go after the Olympics, or maybe even the X Games. Look, part of the reason why it's so hard to find faults in this game is because Bat Boy gets all of the fundamentals right. It's easy to play, has responsive controls, is overflowing with special moves, and most importantly, has a personality all its own. Yes, it has clearly been inspired by some of the greatest platformers of all time, but it never feels like it's an impersonation. Forget about Superman and the so-called Dark Knight, because Bat Boy is the hero the world needs right now. In a year full of great throwback games, Bat Boy is one of the best. Think of this as a sports-themed Mega Man, complete with athletic bosses and levels based on everything from basketball to soccer to tennis. With gorgeous pixel graphics, a snappy soundtrack, precise gameplay, and expertly crafted stages, this is a treat for anybody that grew up loving 8-bit platformers. My only real complaint is that it left me wanting more. Not just a good game, Bat Boy is a grand slam. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite modern throwback game? I'm talking about a modern game that mimics the 8 or 16 or maybe even a 32-bit game. You know, something that's pretending to be 20 or 30 years old. We've had some real good ones this year, so I'm excited to see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back shortly with a review of Killer Frequency, the Tartarus Key, and that new Stasis sequel. Can't wait to see what that's about. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,